No mafia story is complete without eerie tales of brutal, heartless men and women who find it easy to toss human lives around like rags. Among the many legendary mafia bosses and hitmen, a few names like Joseph the Animal Barbosa and Richard the Iceman Kuklinski stand out. But in today's video, we'll be talking about one man whose murder list is so long that he's considered way more brutal than many others: Giovanni Brusca, popularly known as the People Slayer or the Pig. Giovanni the People Slayer Brusca is an Italian mobster and a former member of the Corleonesi clan of the Sicilian Mafia. On February 20th, 1957, in San Giuseppe, Giotto Giovanni was born into a family whose lineage was filled with mafia members. His great-grandfather, grandfather, and father were all part of the mafia, making him a fourth-generation member of the Italian mob. Giovanni's father, Bernardo, was a local mafia patriarch who, after being caught, was sentenced to serve several life sentences for the murders he committed. Following Bernardo's arrest, his son Giovanni started visiting him in jail when he was just 5 years old. Despite being behind bars, Bernardo was anything but remorseful. In fact, he somehow managed to get his three sons, Emanuele, Giovanni, and Vincenzo, involved in the mafia business as early as possible. While some might argue that Giovanni did not have much of a say in the man he grew up to be, because the blood in his veins already decided his fate, his love for bloodshed was evident from a very young age. As a child, Giovanni loved to help clean his father's guns, as well as help fugitives on the run by providing them with clothes and food. When he turned 18, he killed his first two victims using a double-barreled shotgun outside a cinema. From then on, he never looked back. Having such a huge appetite for blood favored young Giovanni, and soon he got to serve under the powerful crime lord, Salvatore Rina. After being inducted into the mafia, Giovanni worked his way up and became a hitman. He tortured victims using very brutal methods to get information from them. He was known for breaking victims' legs with hammers and pulling their ears with pliers. He had no limits when it came to bloodshed and was happy with the work. One time, a neighborhood boss asked him to kill a man driving a certain type of tractor, and Giovanni was only too happy to oblige. He not only killed that man, but he also went on to kill two other drivers driving the same kind of tractor simply because they passed by at the wrong time. Because of Giovanni's love for blood, a hit that was meant for one man took three men to their graves. Another time, a target of his was about to get married, so Giovanni decided to rush the job. According to sources, he decided to quickly kill the man because he did not want to see the fiancée become a widow so soon. In 1992, the anti-mafia prosecutor Gianni Falcone was killed by Giovanni Brusca. The judge was famous for trying to bring the mafia to justice. In 1986, he brought about the Maxi trial, which led to the arrest and conviction of 342 mafia members. To achieve his goal, Brusca planted explosives on a highway near Palermo and waited until Falcone's car drove along the road. Immediately, he set eyes on his target. The vengeful mobster detonated half a ton of explosives. In the car were Falcone, his wife, and his three bodyguards. A few months after that, Giovanni murdered Vincenzo Milazzo and businessman Ignazio Salvo. In June 1993, Santino Di Matteo, a member of the mafia, was arrested, and in a bid to either shorten his sentence or protect his loved ones, he became an informant to the government. He told them all the details about the Falcone assassination. Santino becoming an informant led to what would be considered Giovanni's most brutal killing, the murder of 11-year-old Giuseppe Di Matteo in 1993. After learning that their secrets had been spilled, the mafia retaliated against Santino for becoming an informant by kidnapping his 11-year-old son Giuseppe from witness protection. Giuseppe had gone into witness protection because his father and the authorities knew the mafia would come seeking their own pound of flesh. Sadly, Giuseppe still fell into the hands of the People Slayer. Giovanni and two other mafia members disguised themselves as police officers and set out. They told young Giuseppe that they were taking him to see his father, and the little boy followed them, not knowing he would never see his father again. Giuseppe was kept in a cafe, starved, beaten, and tortured for nearly 800 days. Giovanni would take pictures of the boy and send them to Santino, who desperately begged for his son to be released, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. In January 1996, Giovanni finally gave the order for the boy to be killed. By this time, The young boy was already so physically damaged that he may have considered it a relief when Giovanni's men finally strangled him to death. As if that was not enough, the men went ahead to dissolve the boy's body in acid, a practice commonly known as lupara bianca. This was done to make sure Santino would never find his son's body. Police described Giovanni's actions as one of the most heinous crimes in the history of Cosa Nostra. After the killings of anti-mafia magistrates Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, Brusca went on to wreak more havoc by becoming a major player in a campaign of terror against the state. At the time, the government was doing everything in its power to catch mafia members, so it wasn't long before Giovanni's boss, Salvatore Rina, was arrested. Following Salvatore's arrest, the mafia started bombing several tourist sites in Corleonesi. After detonating bombs in Via de Giorgio Fili in Florence, Via Palestro in Milan, the Piazza San Giovanni in Laterano, and Via San Teodoro in Rome, a total of 71 people were injured and 10 others were killed at the hands of Giovanni and his colleagues. As one would expect, Giovanni's reputation reached the data of law enforcement, and so they began to lay the groundwork to facilitate his arrest. Giovanni was on the run for a few years until investigators managed to intercept his phone and use it to find his location. In May 1996, the wanted mafiosi was finally arrested in a small house near Agrigento. At the time of his arrest, he was with his girlfriend, their son, his brother Vincenzo, his sister-in-law, and her 2 children. Giovanni's arrest brought so much joy to the police to the point that when he was brought into the Palermo police station, all the officers rejoiced loudly and hugged each other. Of course, his arrest meant that the police had one less reason to fear the mafia. In 1997, during court proceedings, Giovanni Brusca met face-to-face with Santino Di Matteo, the father of the teenager he kidnapped, tortured, and killed. Upon seeing Giovanni, Di Matteo burst into tears and said to the judge, "I guarantee my collaboration, but to this animal, I guarantee nothing. If you leave me alone with him for 2 minutes, I'll cut off his head." Thankfully, the confrontation didn't deteriorate into violence, and security guards were able to restrain Di Matteo. Eventually, Brusca was sentenced to 30 years in prison for Giuseppe Di Matteo's murder. He also admitted in court that he planted the bomb that killed Giovanni Falcone and detonated it by remote control while watching the judge's convoy from a hill using binoculars. Brusca then received a 26-year sentence for bombing and killing Giovanni Falcone. To top it all, he was also sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Salvatore Carava. Soon after his arrest, Brusca decided to be an informant to the police. At first, people were skeptical about his decision to work with law enforcement. They thought it was all an act to escape the kind of prison conditions meant for mafia bosses. To show his readiness, Giovanni admitted to having been involved in about 150 murders. In the first 3 months of his collaboration, everything Giovanni said was either false or unverifiable. Since he wasn't ready to be serious with the collaboration, the police considered ending it. But at the nick of time, he finally gave up some information about his former boss, Salvatore Rina, and his involvement with a government official. Giovanni's collaboration helped in the arrest and killing of many Cosa Nostra members and their bosses. In 2002, Brusca requested to be transferred from his prison in Rebibbia to house arrest. He made this request 9 times, but all requests were refused. In 2004, he was reportedly given the opportunity to see his family for 1 week every 45 days. This was his reward for good conduct and being an informant to the government. In the light of his collaboration with the police, Giovanni's sentence was reduced to 26 years in prison. In May 2021, barely 45 days to the end of his sentence, 64-year-old Giovanni Brusca was released on a 4-year parole. Although Brusca's cooperation with the police has been of tremendous help in reducing the activities of Cosa Nostra, his release made the general populace unhappy. The relatives of the victims of Cosa Nostra, as well as some politicians, do not believe that Giovanni is truly remorseful and has repented from his evil ways. Tina Montinaro, the wife of one of Giovanni Falcone's bodyguards, told La Repubblica that she was angry about Brusca's release. She said, "The state is against us. After 29 years, we still don't know the truth about the massacre, and Giovanni Brusca, the man who destroyed my family, is free." Giovanni Falcone's sister, Maria Falcone, speaking to ANSA, said, "On a human level, this is news that pains me. but the law on the reduction of sentences for the collaboration of mafiosi is a law my brother wanted, and therefore it must be respected. I only hope the judiciary and police will be vigilant with extreme attention in order to avert the risk that he commits crimes again. Santino Di Matteo, who still lives in hiding, told Corriere della Sera newspaper that Brusca does not deserve anything. He said, "The law cannot be the same for these people. These people are not human." While still talking to the newspaper, he recalled how Brusca killed a 23-year-old pregnant woman after torturing her boyfriend. He said he hoped never to meet Brusca on the street because he did not know what might happen. Giuseppe's sister Nicola Di Matteo stated that Brusca becoming an informant was an irony considering the fact that he killed her brother, all because their father had become an informant. She said Italy should rethink this system that rewards all government collaborators, even those responsible for massacres and hundreds of murders. Police officer Luciano Traina, who was directly involved in the arrest of Brusca, said he would never forget the look on Brusca's face when they arrested him. He told La Repubblica that he would never forgive Brusca and that he didn't believe Brusca had ever told the truth. Traina's brother and fellow officer was killed by Cosa Nostra, so his feelings are well justified. The leader of the center-left Democratic Party, Enrico Letta, talking about Brusca's release, said, "It is a punch in the stomach that leaves you breathless." Matteo Salvini, the leader of the far-right League Party, said, "After 25 years in prison, the mafia boss Giovanni Brusca is a free man. This is not the justice that Italians deserve." While politicians are asking if the law needs to be reformed so that devious criminals like Brusca cannot escape life sentences, law enforcement officials are saying that reduced sentences of informants is an important tool prosecutors use to get all the information they need to bring down the mafia. Whatever the case, the truth remains. The people slayer, Giovanni Brusca, has been allowed to walk free. Giovanni Brusca is a name that will forever haunt so many families as the stories of his evil doings remains fresh in their hearts. Some people believe that his death is imminent because the mafia would be out for his blood for helping the authorities. But he has managed to endure so far. Will Giovanni live out his days in peace, or will his past come knocking? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section.